Hello. In the present talk, I will focus on the synergy that drives the evolutionary dynamics in biology and in economics. Let's start defining synergy. The Wikipedia defines synergy as the creation of a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. This definition is general and does not help us in understanding the nature and dynamics of synergy. Thus, we have to search for a better way of defining synergy. One way of looking at synergy is to focus on its outcome. If the outcome cannot be explained by the simple sum of its parts, we speak of the existence of synergy. The term synergy is not very old. When we Google the word synergy in documents over the last 200 years, we see that's only in the last 10 years that synergy has become quite popular. Synergy not only refers to creating things, it also implies increased efficiency. Here we have an example of a filter, where different components filter with different efficiency a fluid. It's only when the forms 1 and 3 join that we have a total control of the fluid. That means that only in joining forms 1 and 3 do we have an actual synergy. Synergy in information is also very important. Here we see that the explorations by dots in dark blue are less efficient than explorations of dots in light blue. That is because the dots in light blue somehow coordinate their actions, producing a synergy. As we see, synergy is referred to in many cases which we don't understand what's actually happening. In the case of chemical reactions, however, we will have better knowledge. The properties of water, which is formed by joining hydrogen atoms with oxygen atoms, are completely different from the component parts. I mean, water is a liquid, oxygen and hydrogen are gases, they're inflammatory, water is not inflammatory, doesn't react with fire. So there is no way of producing the properties of water by knowing the properties of hydrogen or oxygen. However, after the advent of quantum chemistry, we can explain, predict, and analyze these processes in a very detailed way. That means then that when we refer something to as synergetic or to synergy, we actually are recognizing our ignorance about what's behind that process. And when a new theory arises, like in this case quantum chemistry, synergy is not useful anymore, and we have more specific ways of describing those processes. Many years ago, Adam Smith had a hunch about the invisible hand in the markets of some forces which produced emergent properties. He didn't specifically use the concept of synergy in recordable ways, but certainly he referred to synergy. And one way of looking at this synergy is doing simulations models in which we have different agents, like here in these photographs, colored differently, some exploiting, for example, minerals, the other ones exploiting food. Some are thick and fat with food, some are high and tall because they have many minerals, some have both, and we can then simulate what happens in these situations and see how actually the synergy arises in them. And that we have done here in this case, in which we have miners and farmers interacting and see how they produce the synergy. And what comes out actually is very interesting. In this simulation model, of course, we can have a complete insight of what happens. We have the total quantitative value of the different variables. We have the point value of the variables, so we know what's happening. And what's happening here is that division of labor produces a synergistic way of doing business. If all agents are the same in this game, the creation of wealth is very low. When we have division of labor, when we have miners and farmers doing different jobs, we have a synergy between them, which increases the accumulated wealth enormously. That means that somehow Adam Smith's invisible hand does represent a case of synergy in economics. A remarkable finding in biology is that division of labor is not exclusive to human beings. In ant societies, as shown here, bees, in most, or if not in all, social insects and social animals, we find important division of labors. This division is, of course, different in different species, but it's always present. I mean, it seems no way of increasing efficiency in the animal world without the use of division. This, of course, is known among humans. I mean, division of labor in modern society is much stronger than in the past. It's getting stronger and stronger every day, which means then that division of labor is an important source of structure, and we need to understand how it works both in biology and in economics. The economic view presented here in a very simplified form shows that the division of labor is the driver of the synergy that produces efficient economic markets. Division of labor also creates synergies among plants and animals. Peter Kornick presented many examples of this. But how can we study and analyze the phenomena that produces synergy and their dynamics? How can we grasp empirically or experimentally the working of synergy? How can we quantify synergy? If division of labor and synergy are both at work in economics and in biological processes, how can we create a common conceptual framework that allows economists and biologists to exchange their experiences and build upon each other's discoveries? I propose to start with the theory of biological evolution, and specifically with the inclusive fitness theory and its working in evolution. Both living organisms and human economies suffer evolution. In both, synergy plays a central role. Let's see if we can build an expanded inclusive fitness theory that is relevant for both economic and biological evolution. A very important insight of Darwin was the concept of natural selection. That means that if somehow a population is being selected for certain characteristics, like in this case, red beetles are not eaten, whereas green beetles are eaten by these birds, then the population changes, and this change in population genetics is the motor of evolution. That means natural selection drives evolution. Here we see how this schematic representation can be visualized. In biology, we have this natural selection process, which leaves individuals to survive, which then mate, they produce phenotypic variations, they express phenotypically, they have to adapt to environments, then they suffer selection again, etc. But this natural selection cycle has, of course, other cycles, also described by Darwin. In this case, we show here the sexual selection cycle. That means the way individuals mate, the way they attract their mates, the way they select their mates, will influence the long-term fitness also. That means that the way they mate is subjected to selection pressure also, which means that we have a complex set of hypercycles which underlay evolution. And in the last 20 years, we know that these two hypercycles are completed by other ones, specifically the inclusive fitness cycle, which implies that the selection probability of an individual depends on what their friends do, of what their family members do, of what their neighbors do. I mean, the survival value of an individual also depends on others. This is called inclusive fitness, and somehow this inclusive fitness is related to synergy. That means that if you live in a group in which you interact with others, for example, through division of labor, which produces synergy, your selection value increases. That means synergy affects inclusive fitness and therefore is a driver of biological evolution. This way of looking at classical concepts, both in biology and in economics, allow us to escape from the classical framework of economics, the classical framework of biology, and try to look for a new framework in which both biology and economy can interchange ideas. Understanding the working of synergy and its origins is an ongoing challenge. There is still much research to be done. You are invited to join us in this endeavor. Thanks for your attention.